Do you treat your needs, your desires, and your limits with respect? This is at the core of self consent. So let's talk more about self consent today, especially because it is, in my view, an integral part of relationship anarchy, which involves a deep level of self understanding, right? So if I am self determined, I must know myself, even as one evolves over time. But I must know myself. I must get a sense of what it is I desire, and then have the agency to pursue that. And so this part plays a big role as well. That self-consent, like how much do I know my needs, my limits, my desires, my preferences, my boundaries? Like how much do I know myself? And some people talk about it as getting a sense of your internal yes and your internal no. That's a very simplified version, right? Like, yes, you can get a sense of those things, your yes and your no. What does that feel like? For me, a yes feels expansive. It feels light in my body. I usually have physical sense of my yes and my no. The no feels dense, feels like my heart closes down a little bit. Or I'll feel it closing up in my throat, right? So those are examples of understanding your yes and your no. Maybe it's like a feeling in the pit of your stomach. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe you feel it in your hands. You can feel it anywhere. You don't even necessarily have to feel it. You can just know, because you will experience your experience uniquely, right? Some people are more kinesthetic. Maybe you are more felt sense. Some people are more in their mind. You get a sense from your own thoughts and your own understanding about something, whether it's a yes or a no. But I appreciated, as I did some more research on this, that's the beginning. And then there's the deeper understanding of self-consent, where you might have a part of you that says yes and a part of you that says no. Or as we look at that sense of what actually is yes, that you can even break it down to, is it I want, like I'm saying yes out of that desire, or is it I'm willing to? I don't mind. I wouldn't necessarily just think of that on my own to choose it, but like now that it's here, or someone that I care about desires that and I don't have a no, I'm willing to, right? So like then that's another version of a yes. And so understanding even the nuances of what a yes is for you, and how do you know? Have you taken the time? Sometimes it's we get so used to the roles that we play or the answers that we typically offer that we aren't actually getting curious. We aren't actually being present. Is it a yes now? Just because I did this thing with this person yesterday or last week, does that mean I want it right now? Right? Do I have to? Do I feel a sense of pressure? Maybe just in my own mind, socially, that I should want to? Or am I allowing myself to actually question that? To even get to know when I'm allowing myself to be pressured, just because you're getting aware that maybe you have a no for this, or a maybe, but it doesn't feel like a full yes. And what even is a full yes, right? We just said there around the willing to versus want to. A willing to could be a full yes, right? It just wasn't something you necessarily thought of. So even if you get more aware of what your yes and your no feels like, is like, what your indicators are for yes or no, or a yes I want, yes I'm willing, no, maybe, all the different versions, right? Nuances. You might still choose to do it anyways. Because maybe there's a part of you that's so practiced on saying that and wants to avoid conflict, that is more used to perhaps avoiding conflict than following your actual inner wisdom or inner intuition, inner answers, So giving yourself that grace and the opportunity to be a growing, evolving person, that you're not necessarily going to do this perfectly. You won't do this perfectly if it's something that's harder or that you're not practiced at, right? Self-consent is an invitation. And notice too, if you come across this idea of self-consent and you turn it into now this thing I must get perfectly. Is that allowing yourself self-consent to engage with self-consent? You know what I mean? Like if you tend to get kind of black and white about things and like perfectionistic about it, is something else driving that versus I actually want to practice this more. You know, give yourself a break. Let yourself become aware. And like, especially when I was doing a lot more coaching, I would tell people, hey, there is a phase where you're wanting to do these new things. You're here in coaching for a reason. You maybe want to create some change. The first step is always awareness, and it's the hardest one because you don't have the practice yet of actually engaging the thing or making the change. But you have awareness, so now you can see everything. Like maybe the things you don't want to see or you haven't been willing to look at, and now it's in your face. And that's really hard because the actions haven't caught up yet to the awareness. So just know that that may happen, or it can likely happen. But if you aren't putting yourself under the pressure that the action has to immediately come with awareness, that I must be perfect about this the moment I'm aware of wanting to do things differently, then it can actually be a really beautiful process of celebrating every time you get more aware, of like allowing it to be a process of self-love. And that awareness is one of those steps, one of the elements of that self-love. Oh, look at me. I'm becoming aware now that I don't like that. I may have said yes, but I'm becoming aware that actually if I had, when I give myself more time, then I might have realized I didn't want that, right? Okay, this is great. This is wonderful. This is moving me in that direction. I'm on this path of self-discovery, self-honoring, self-respect, self-consent, right? Yeah. And also just validating that to yourself, right? Like, hey, someone who understands the process of a change, at least as a coach, that like very normal to have a phase of awareness as you build the practice of whatever the thing is, including this. But I wanted to come back to that sense of parts because I was reading it was artofconsent.co.uk/self-consent. They brought up that sense that, especially if you are familiar with things like parts work or the internal family systems realm of like therapy and things like that, where inside you might have different parts of yourself, and you even use that kind of language like, oh, a part of me wants pizza right now, but another part of me wants a salad or something, right? Really simple. As a gluten-free dairy-free person, because both of those things hurt my body, I would love pizza. Okay. So right, parts. And so I really appreciate this because I'm going to link this article because the author of this shows an example, like writes out an example of a time when they had to navigate their parts in making a decision, and that maybe there's an adventurous part of you that really likes to say yes to bold, amazing things and those next steps. And then there's a part of you that can feel more anxiety and like wants certainty, or like feels more withdrawn about these things, or gets afraid. And that part is like, no, I want to stay at home and feel safe and comfortable, right? So in this process of engaging with and developing greater self-consent, what do you do with parts? Do you just ignore the part that's afraid? Because there's that whole saying around, be afraid but do it anyways. Like, when do you want to engage with that? And that's actually a really empowering thing, and that's something that is your full yes, to be courageous, take a courageous step, face a fear. When would it actually be helpful to not override or overwhelm your nervous system by taking too much of a step or doing something that internally perhaps that part is telling you you're not ready for in this moment? Or maybe you need certain things to become ready, or you need certain supports to make that possible, right? This is where this topic and this practice of becoming more aware of your own consent, like practicing self-consent, developing self-consent skills, helps you to take into account all these different things about yourself, to really honor yourself and respect yourself on such a deep level. And to just, I like to think about it as like playing with these different elements, practicing them, as these things come up. Maybe even seeing those moments of feeling really triggered inside as an opportunity to explore the parts that are now present. I remember when I was doing therapy, and I specifically sought out someone who knew internal family systems, because I had learned about it. I read the book, as I do, and I was like, okay, let's do this. I want to get to know my parts. Even though I'm enthusiastic person, that shit is not easy. But anyways, I remember this one time I had this big reaction. I was very sad about something. I can't remember exactly what in this moment, but this huge reaction. And because I've been doing parts work, so I went from thinking this is me, right? I felt very identified with the experience that was happening in that moment, to I had this thought all of a sudden, like, oh wait, this is a part. And it's almost like I was able to step to the side briefly and view it from a different perspective or a different, angle, and realize, oh, this emotion that's erupting in this moment isn't me, isn't the entirety of my reality. This is a part. And then I felt really honored. I was like, wow, this part feels safe enough in my system, my nervous system, and my psyche, whatever else, my emotions, and how I've been approaching this to be okay with expressing itself. And that shifted the whole experience for me. It's like, wow. Because sometimes too, especially if you are moving through things, moving through a trigger, it is not fun experience usually. And it can be really intense and overwhelming. And so it's things sometimes we can want to avoid. But to experience it from a sense of feeling incredibly honored that that part was willing to be present. And then another thing too is that when you think about emotions, what they desire to be and to do is to be felt, to be expressed. Unless you're looping, which can happen in the nervous system sometimes, unless you're looping an emotion, if it is coming up to be expressed, to be felt, it completes the circuit, right? It completes the process that's trying to be processed in your system. And that you don't necessarily have to do anything about it, right? Okay, we get all up, agitated by triggers because we feel like we have to do something about this, but feeling it is doing something. Letting yourself cry if you feel sad, letting yourself be angry when you feel angry, and hit a pillow or something, allowing it to be expressed in a safe way that respects yourself and other people, is what it's meant to be. Acknowledging that you have that feeling. I know when I was really getting in touch with anger, I actually really enjoyed the experience of being angry, because for a long time I had avoided my anger and pushed it down, suppressed it, didn't let myself feel it. And so when it finally erupted on its own, and it wasn't that same emotion, this is a different experience, but around the same time, when it finally started coming up like a volcano, I loved it. It's I want to be angry. I get to be angry. It's great. I felt really embodied in it too. I was ooh, this is interesting energy. Yeah, I mean, I don't always enjoy being angry, because I also feel it kind of in my organs sometimes. I feel I sense inside my body a lot. I don't know if other people feel inside their bodies a lot. I do. To the point where it'll freak me out sometimes, because if I don't know what it means, but I'm feeling it. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so self-consent, come back to what I'm saying, parts, work. Right, so I won't be able to give you an answer, right? I can't offer you an answer of what do you do with the parts, but the invitation is to be aware of them, to allow them to coexist, to see if they can come to an agreement, Maybe let's go back to courage versus fear, right? There's a part of you that's adventurous, wants to say yes, be courageous. Then there's the part of you that's afraid to do it. Maybe it's public speaking or something like that, but you really want to. So both of those things will come up. What do you then do? You know? And I actually had that experience over the summer because I had been traveling and then I went home for a couple months. And I remember when I got home, I didn't feel a sense of adventure because I was kind of back, and then I was dealing with stuff and all that, like physical stuff that I was managing. And I remember thinking like, okay, like when I was traveling, it was this continual process of getting out of my comfort zone, and now I'm back in my comfort zone. So how do I intentionally get myself out of my comfort zone to continue this process of growth, which I wanted to be on? So I signed myself up for like one of those times when you're, what is that called? To like read something I wrote at this local coffee shop, and they had the mic and the things and the audience. Okay, whatever that's called. And yeah, so I said yes to it. I didn't even sign up beforehand. You just go and you sign up once you get there. But I told myself I'm going to go, and I had like 2 days to get there, right? So the day of, started feeling all the fear come up. The fear is like, wait, you're actually going to do this? What are you even going to read? And I had one thing that I knew I was going to read, and I just had all this anxiety come up because I was like, oh shit, this is public speaking, and that's terrifying. Or at least I was used to it being terrifying. And I had this really interesting experience where I allowed both things to exist at the same time. I allowed the anxiety to come up along with that vision I had of myself of being courageous, of being the one that can get up there and share something that I had actually created. Because I wanted to be that person who can do it, who did it, not just could do it, but does it, you know? And so I just kind of allowed them both to exist. I allowed the fear to come up when it came up. And then I did things that would help me process it. So I would made sure I exercised. So I was getting physical movement that was helping to engage some of that adrenaline that was coming up and sort of process it out. And I worked with my own mindset, and I visualized. I noticed when my mind would go into catastrophe mode and it was sort of visualizing bad things happening, and I would sort of redirect it to visualizing it going well. Be like, yeah, okay, that's a possibility, but also is this. And I'd start saying that even out loud, just being like, or I could get there and I could actually have a great time, and I could walk up there and I could feel confident, and my confidence could be a part of what inspires people from what I'm doing here, and I could say this in a certain way that's really funny, and then and then I'll be done and then I can walk off. So I was practicing different things that helped to give to the fear part that encouragement. I was addressing it. I wasn't ignoring it. I wasn't telling myself, don't be afraid. I was saying, hey, I'm going to let myself be afraid as I do this. And that's okay. And that gets to actually be a part of it. I remember thinking that too. Even when I sat down, I'd already written my name on the list. I sat down. I said to myself, hey, me going up there with the fear is part of this experience. So don't try to ignore that. Allow it to be here really consciously and watch what happens, and give yourself proof from a place of presence that this isn't something that I actually have to be afraid of. There is no lion going to eat my head off. Right? There's no actual bad thing that can happen. And so because I did that, and I was so present during it, allowing the feel of fear to be there, allowing myself to know, hey, I'm afraid and I'm doing this, I feel like it really did actually change something. It showed me something I really needed to see. So yeah, that's an example. But in the website that I will link, her example was actually honoring the fear, right? So I invite you to go read that, because in that case, it makes a lot of sense, right? It had to do with a health concern, and she wanted to do the adventurous thing, but she actually honored the fact that she was more uncomfortable with the potential risk. Right? I'm not giving you an answer, right? I'm just always be courageous because you can address the fear. No. Be present with the actual parts. See what they have to say. Come into a sense of agreement if you can. And I also wanted to offer this as another resource too. There's a website called loveuncommon.com. And if you go to /self-consent-courses, there is this self-consent skills wheel that they offer you here. And they go through everything from attunement to self, interacting with others, emotional regulation, discernment, review, celebration, and plan, zone of influence. And it gives you some questions you can ask yourself. Like, do I have the skills to express my needs, my desires, my boundaries? Like, that was kind of at the beginning of this. I said, you might not have the skill yet to actually express it, but you might be developing the skill of awareness. Still very important. And then you can practice that sense of expressing it. You can find opportunities to, what's the term? Build that muscle, build that skill. Or things like, do I know the difference between discomfort and danger, right? So like for her, in the example of the health thing, there might have been actual danger. For me, it was discomfort of feeling anxiety or thinking that if people could tell I was anxious, that was terrible for some reason, right? That was more of a discomfort. Or things like, do I review when I've abandoned myself? Like, am I willing to sort of look back with grace? Look back with self-compassion. Because even the review, even the times you allow yourself to reflect on where I did abandon myself is a huge act of self-love, because you're not doing it from judgment. I really invite you to not do that from judgment or self-criticism, but from, okay, yeah, I have a lot of compassion for myself in that time when I didn't have the skill or the resources within me, but I'm going to bring this into my now, hold it with my heart, allow myself to see maybe what I would like to do different. And that maybe my willingness to review that and then to at least attempt to do something different next time is a part of the healing the times when maybe I abandoned myself. Yeah. So I'll put these up here. I feel like this is such an interesting and powerful topic, especially for our exploration of relationship anarchy. and yeah. I will get to the book soon. It's very dense. Also, I've reached out to the author to see if I can read some of it on here, so that you can hear it and then we can discuss. So we'll see about that. But yeah, tell me your thoughts. What have you been practicing with self-consent? What is easy for you in that regard? What has been difficult? Do you find yourself given to self-abandonment? Is it easy to have boundaries? Do you find that you actually put a lot of boundaries up? Maybe it's in an almost protective mode. Yeah, I'm curious. I know for me, I'll share first, that I definitely had a tendency for self-abandonment, right? So I had a number of years where I really worked on that, becoming aware of that, working with the parts, practicing showing up when I was afraid, but I knew I needed to say something, because that was really where the yes was, that, hey, even though I'm afraid, I need to express something. Maybe it was I needed someone to do something differently, or that the thing that was done didn't actually work for me, so forth, right? So, tell me about your experience, or if you don't want to get into your experience, you can just talk about what about this concept really intrigues you. Yeah. All right, I'll talk to you very soon.